Hello students, today we will be having an understanding of role of photograph and photographers in visual communication process. Let us define visual communication first. The standard definition of visual communication says that visual communication is the communication of ideas through the visual display of information. Primarily associated with the two-dimensional images, it includes art, signs, photography, typography, drawing fundamentals, color, and electronic resources. Recent research in the field has focused on the web design and graphically oriented usability. It is part of what a graphic designer does to communicate visually with the audience. The primary tool by which man has visualized ideas is through the usage of writing and, by extension, type. Writing or type is the visual manifestation of the spoken word, and words are what we communicate with. Thus, it is no overstatement when we say that type is the essence of visual communication and, by extension, of visual communication design. Type, where it is present, is simply the single most important element that you put on a page, since it is inherently carries the essence of communication, and communication is what our subject of study as graphic multimedia designers is all about. Thus, the history of visual communication, that is the history of the visualization of the spoken word, will largely follow the development of typographic system with a special focus on Latin typographic system, given that this is the one that we are operating under. Although the primary focus will be on typographic elements and methodologies, the session will of course also cover pictorial aspect of visual communication such as illustration, illumination, photography, shapes, color, etc., as and where they pertain to the essence of the subject. In this lecture, we will understand about the process of visual communication, important perspective through which we could understand what visual communication is, and role of a photographer in the process of visual communication. Let us understand about the history of visual communication in brief. Major elements are rocks and caves, ideograms, the alphabet, the art of the book, the printing press, the masters of type, breaking the grid, the avant-garde, the modernist, and the computer. Now, let us understand what all is included in the study of visual communication. Students who are studying visual communication are taught the basic physics of light, anatomy and physiology of the eye, cognitive and perception theories, color theories, gestalt psychology, aesthetics, natural reading patterns, design principle, semiotics, persuasion, camera filming and action, image types and so forth. This creates a basic building block for understanding that what is visual communication. Now, let us understand different perspectives which are responsible for the analysis of an image. Visual communication contains image aspect. The interpretation of image is subjective, and to understand the depth of meaning or multiple meanings communicated in an image requires analysis. Image can be analyzed through many perspectives. For example, the 6 major perspectives presented by Paul Martin Lester are: personal perspective. Let us understand about personal perspective. Personal perspective is when a viewer has an opinion about an image based on their personal thoughts. Personal response depends on the viewer's thoughts and values individually. This might be sometimes in conflict with cultural values. Also, when a viewer has viewed an image with a personal perspective, it is then hard to change the view of the image on the viewer. Even the image also can be seen in other ways. Historical perspective. An image's view can be arising from the history of the used media. Through times, sought image have been changed because the use of different media. For example, the result of using the computer to edited image is quite different when comparing images that are made and edited by craft. Technical perspective. When the view of an image is influenced by the use of light, position and the presentation of the image, the right use of light, position and presentation of the image can improve the view of the image. It makes the image look better than the reality. Now, let us have a look on ethical perspective. Ethical perspective. From this perspective, the maker of the image, the viewer and the image itself must be responsible morally and ethically to the image. This perspective is also categorized in 6 categories: categorical, imperative, utilitarianism, hedonism, golden mean, golden rule and wheel of ignorance. Now, let us understand about cultural perspective. Cultural perspective. Symbolization is an important definition for this perspective. Cultural perspective involves identity of symbols, the uses of words that are related with the image, the use of heroes in the image, etc. or the symbolization of image. The cultural perspective can also be seen as semiotic perspective. Now, let us understand critical perspective. Critical perspective. The view of images in the critical perspective is when the viewers criticize the images, but critiques have been made in interest of the society. Although an individual makes the critiques, this way this perspective differs from the personal perspective. Now, let us understand the importance of composition in visual communication, which is a very important aspect one photographer must take care of while shooting a snap. Beginners often find it difficult to compose object while taking picture. Though there is no hard and fast rule to compose a photograph, there are some guidelines to identify the elements and arrange them in different geometrical patterns so that images come out pleasing and meaningful. Now, let us understand as how our eyes map the placement of the object from all the 4 corners of the frame and create attention. Further, based on that theory, there is a discussion on the rules of the thirds or the golden mean of intersection for placing the elements anywhere other than the center. The act of composing is arrangement of different elements within the frame in a deliberate and usually attractive or artistic way. What is the role of frame or format into it? A frame or format is essential for any pictorial composition on which to compose. A frame of a photographic camera is either square or rectangular. A square frame will suit a square object better. A rectangular frame can either be horizontal or vertical. There are no hard and fast rules for selecting these. Usually, a landscape looks good in a horizontal rectangular frame. Portraits can be composed in a vertical rectangular frame. Prolonged staring at a blank frame gives an uneasy feeling to the onlooker. This is because human eyes continue to hunt in a void space until they spot one object. For easier understanding, we can choose a point as an object. We are choosing point because the point is simplest graphical element possible, which has only existence but hardly any dimension. Now, the moment we place this point somewhere within the frame, it commands all our attention. Our eyes start mapping the position of the point from all the 4 corners of the frame. This creates a tension until it reaches the center of the frame. Here, it attracts equal tensions from all the four corners of the frame. For example, we can refer to the portrait of a famous painter Pablo Picasso by the renowned photographer Irving Penn. The painter's eye reflects Picasso's personality and Penn has placed it at the center of the frame. Rules of the third is used for placing the elements anywhere other than the center. We follow a rule called the rules of the third. Golden mean of intersection. We divide the frame both horizontally and vertically into 3 equal parts. Thus, we get 4 intersections of the lines. We choose from amongst these intersections the proper positions for placement of visual elements. Normally, we select the upper left hand intersection for placing subjects facing the right bottom of the frame and the upper right hand intersection for placing subjects facing the left bottom of the frame. Similarly, we choose the lower right hand intersection for placing subjects facing the upper left hand corner of the frame and the lower hand intersection for subjects facing the upper right hand corner of the frame. Elements of composition. 2 points. In case of more than one point, say 2 points within the frame, the eye starts moving between the points and create an imaginary line between them. Geometrically, a line is a little more complex than a point. It has only length, but it hardly covers any area. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Straight line can be horizontal, vertical or oblique depending upon its placement. Horizontal line. A line of horizon should always be parallel to the base of the frame. This gives the viewer a stable or pleasant feeling. Try to avoid the horizontal line bisecting the frame into 2 equal halves. This provides no preference to either segment of the picture. Horizontal line should cut the frame at the ratio of 2/3 and 1/3. The rule is whenever you are framing a landscape, find out which is more interesting in the scenery or decide on which part you want to give more stress. If the sky with its cloud is more spectacular and you want to give more emphasis to it, fill 2/3 of the frame with the sky. Or if the foreground of the scenery is more interesting, fill 2/3 of the frame with it. For example, to give more stress on the foreground of Mountain Williamson of California, the renowned photographer Ansel Adams had filled the 2/3 of his frame with the boulders on the riverbed. Vertical line. Vertical lines in the frame are always dominating. Again, you should avoid a vertical line which bisects the frame into 2 equal halves. Try to place the line so that it divides the frame at the ratio of 1/3 to 2/3. Oblique line. An oblique line in the frame gives the feeling of instability. A line between the upper left hand corner and the lower right hand corner gives a feeling of downwards movement. Again, a line between the left hand corner and the upper right hand corner suggests an upward movement. For example, consider this Henri Cartier-Bresson photograph, little Greek girl mounting a staircase. Here, the suggestion of the upward movement has been dramatically brought out. This is because it has a direct relation to our habit of reading a text from the left to the right. Moreover, our eyes move along with the line. Zigzag line. Zigzag lines are series of connected diagonal lines. They tend to increase the area covered by them. Curved line. A curved line induces a smooth progressive movement of eyes which is often poetic. Elements of composition. 3 points. Think of a frame with 3 points. As long as they are placed one after another, they tend to represent a straight line. But the moment one of them moves away from this regular placement, our eyes move between the points in the triangular formation. You can also get the same feeling of triangle when there is a point and a straight line placed at different locations. Triangular composition. Geometrically, a triangle is more complex than a line as it covers a certain area. In a triangular composition, the important points are its vertices. When the base of a triangle is parallel to the base of frame, the constraint of the viewer is the maximum at the vertex opposite to the base. Often, the vertex a triangle can provide an idea of the direction of moving bodies. Square, rectangular and circular composition. Usually, placement of elements in square or rectangular formation generally fails to generate an interesting formation or composition. However, a circular composition has its own charm. It gives a feeling of circular movement as our eyes move continuously from one point to another in a circular manner. The areas covered by the picture elements are called positive space and the empty or void space constitutes negative space. In a frame, there should be more positive space than negative space. So, while composing, either move, close or zoom into the subject as much as possible. But remember, you should always maintain enough head space, that is the space above the head of any character. Further, you should maintain more looking space than the back space. Further, you should avoid vertical lines peeping behind the head of the character. Balance. In a frame, two elements can be arranged in such a manner that one counterbalances the other. This can be done in terms of shape, shade or colors. In a picture, the shape of the plaque on the wall is counterbalancing the man. Further, the brighter shades of the left side are counterbalanced by the dark tones of the right side. Colored objects can be counterbalanced by its complementary color. For example, a red color object can be balanced with green colored object. In a picture, the perspective gives an idea of the distance derived from the relative size of the elements. Single point perspective. All the vertical lines usually converge at a point at the distant horizon, provide an interesting geometrical pattern. This is an example of a single point perspective. 2-point perspective. In some photographs, especially when you cover two sides of a cubical object, for example, a building from a distance, the line diverges into opposite directions. This is an example of a 2-point perspective. Perspective only changes with the change of camera position. Moving the camera either in horizontal or vertical axis can do this. It can even reorganize the static elements. Remember, perspective does not affect by lens movement like zoom in and zoom out when the camera is in static position. Aerial perspective. Aerial perspective or atmospheric perspective refers to the effect the atmosphere has on the appearance of an object as it is viewed from a distance. As the distance between an object and a viewer increases, the contrast between the object and its background decreases, and the contrast of any markings or details within the object also decreases. The colors of the object also become less saturated and shift towards the background color, which is usually blue, but under some conditions may be some other color. For example, at sunrise or sunset, distant color may shift towards red. Compose through foreground objects. In a location, try to locate an arc or any other opening through which compose your subject. This creates a relation between the foreground and background. It also gives a perception of depth. At some times, this may help you to capture a vertical object in a horizontal frame. While composing, painters can manipulate objects freely on the canvas. So does a graphic artist working on a computer. Even a photographer can exercise this freedom so long as the subject can be moved. However, a photographer finds it difficult to compose when the objects are immovable. In that case, a photographer needs to explore the space, move physically both horizontally as well as vertically to arrange different elements in geometrical patterns. In this lecture, we have discussed about the basics of visual communication, its perspective through which an image should be analyzed. We had a look on the composition aspect of visual communication, which is more important for a photographer to understand and for a photograph to appear good. This information gives us an idea that a photographer must understand visual communication in order to create communicative images.